right, and welcome to Fast Break Breakfast, NBA podcast. My name is Keith, here once again with a solo interview episode. The Raptors-Warriors series is now tied after a brutal slog of a game. I saw some people saying Game 2 was awesome, and I thought it was kind of miserable. It was really, really long. The referees were going nuts, and you guys know I'm Team Ref. There were some crazy calls, but a lot of it was just the stars were getting the star calls. I think most of the fouls were actually correct, just the number of them. And then once the Kawhi Leonard realized he could get a whistle by just bumping into a guy and just throwing his arms, he was getting that. Sure, there were a few that were like clean strips, and I thought a lot of travels were overlooked. Steph Curry seemed to travel a lot, but a brutal game. The Raptors do not take advantage of Klay Thompson getting injured, of Kevon Looney getting injured. The Warriors, and maybe I'm just in denial about the quality of the Warriors' backups, but the Warriors did serious business with Alfonso McKinney on the court. These lineups with Quinn Cook and Sean Livingston and McKinney and Andrew Bogut. I think Chris Herring on Twitter said, if you give up 3 alley-oops to Andrew Bogut, you just take the L. You lost that one. So maybe I'm disrespecting the Warriors, but it seemed like the Raptors really blew it, conceding this massive 27-3 run, bridging the second and third quarters. And yes, they got back in it as the extreme shorthanded Warriors were susceptible to a box-and-one zone, and the ending was very exciting, but I think most Raptors fans are kind of sick to their stomach right now, and that seems to be the way that our guest today, Chris Walder, was. He's not glass half full right now. He's still in a period of mourning. Spoiler for when we talk. But so check that out. If you want to support our show, I got to say a couple of you have claimed your iTunes reviews that you just wrote, so I can send out stickers for you. So if you want Fast Break Breakfast stickers, I'll send them to you for free as long as you write us a 5-star iTunes review. Screenshot it to prove that you did it. Send that to me on Twitter at FastBreakBreak, or you can email me, fastbreakbreak@gmail.com. Send me the screenshot there, and I will mail you probably up to 10. Tell me how many stickers you want. I'll send you some Fast Break Breakfast stickers for free. Also, I just posted over on tpublic.com/user/fastbreakbreakfast some new shirts designed by our buddy Daniel Box. John Wick NBA logo shirts. I was watching John Wick 3. I saw Boban, was thinking of our Boban logo shirts, and I was like, oh, I want some John Wick logo shirts. So I think they look amazing. If you want those, they're on sale for $13 a shirt right now. I don't set the prices, but $13 is the sale price when you put up a new shirt. So if you go to tpublic.com/user/fastbreakbreakfast, you can check out those shirts. Uploaded 3 new John Wick NBA logo shirts. They're $13 a piece. Maybe check those out, see if you want to get those. All right, now let's talk about the NBA Finals with Chris Walder. My guest today is the NBA editor for The Score and a Raptors diehard, and a first-time guest on Fast Break Breakfast, Chris Walder. Chris, how are you?
Well, I'm doing as good as I can possibly be doing after last night's Game 2. I'll tell you that much.
So Sunday night wasn't the best. So you're telling me you roll out of bed on Monday morning. Which side of bed are you rolling out on? I feel like I'm already hearing it in your voice. Are you rolling out on... we had a shorthanded, kind of bedraggled Warriors team on the ropes, missing, Durant, missing Klay Thompson, missing foundational piece Kevon Looney, and we didn't take care of business at home. Or, hey, kyle-lowry, marc-gasol, Pascal Siakam weren't really all that great. We gave up an 18-0 run to start the third, and yet we were still in it in the final seconds, and it's 1-1. We still got a series. So which side?
It was it was honestly hard to get a lot of sleep last night because I even said this on Twitter. Like that 18-0 run in the third quarter was going to haunt my dreams, and it certainly did. So I woke up on the side of the bed that was just pounded by like an infinite amount of like what ifs. Like what if that run didn't happen? What if Kawhi Leonard got that steal near the end? What if Iguodala didn't hit that 3-pointer? So obviously I usually the optimist that I am, I couldn't be that way first thing in the morning.
So yes, we're still less than 24 hours from the game, and you're. Do you feel like maybe you'll be able to get in that headspace? Like, hey guys, it's okay. We're in this. We got the champs. We're split 1-1. This is good. This is going to be okay. We can settle down once we get our final sea legs under us. We'll be ready for the fight.
Well, hopefully I can get to that point. I mean, look, this entire postseason run for the Raptors has been like a cathartic experience, a magical experience, because just when you think this team is about to bow out, they somehow rise from the ashes and they surprise even me, because I feel, having watched the Raptors for as long as I have, I feel like I've seen everything that could possibly happen to this team. I watched when Vince Carter missed that shot from the corner in the 2001 semifinals against the 76ers. I saw Paul Pierce block kyle-lowry in the dying seconds against Brooklyn. I've watched a number one pick be used on Andrea Bargnani. Like, I've been through the lowest of lows, and to see, the way that this playoff run has happened, with the complete opposite happening, it's nice that, like, hey, we're in the NBA Finals. Like, no matter what happens, no one could take that away from Raptors fans and the players themselves. So hopefully, splitting the first two games at home and knowing that we could have had game 2 last night, which let's be real, we should have had game 2 last night, based on how that turned out. We're going into Oracle Arena. My confidence isn't necessarily that high right now, but I feel like with these gaps between games, like I'll eventually, try and remember that it's best not to get too high, not to get too low, and just take every game for what it is.
Did you allow yourself after game 1, and this might be a coping mechanism that I've used as a small market fan of like the Memphis Grizzlies. Did you allow yourself to look at this like, hey, we're up 1-0. This might be the apex. Like, this could be the best moment? Or were you thinking like, oh my gosh, we're going to win the NBA Finals?
I was more so like that after when we beat the Bucks in game 6.
Okay.
Like when we hoisted the Eastern Conference championship, and I'm like, man, this might be as good as it ever gets, or at least for a very long time. So I went into this final series with Golden State thinking, okay, these guys, they've been to the finals so many times, like you've lost track. They're defending champions. They've got Stephen Curry. Like, Kevin Durant is hurting, but like this team literally just swept a really good Portland Trail Blazers team. So I tried to embrace the fact, and I was downtown in game 6 when they won. I was at the office, which is like maybe a couple blocks up from Scotiabank Arena. So I heard the atmosphere at Jurassic Park. Like, I heard the noise. I saw people jumping on streetcars and whatnot. And I'm like, this is our championship right now. All the crap that we've endured over the years, like, this is it right now. And whatever happens against Golden State is gravy. Like, if we win a game, I'd be satisfied. Like, I know they swept LeBron and the Cavaliers last year, and then they took, I think it was like 4 of 5 against them the year prior. So, like, I understand, like, how great they are. And even with Kawhi Leonard and, like, the depth that we have, it's like, okay, if we get a game, I'll be satisfied. So when we won game 1, I was like, this is amazing. Like, I was texting, I was calling a lot of people. Like, it was so much fun. But at the same time, I'm like, okay, we're here now. Let's just, like, screw it. Let's just go for it. Let's just see how far these guys can really go. Like, injuries will come into play. Like, who knows when Kevin Durant's going to come back? Let's try and just, like, end this before he's even available to get back on the floor. Now that's obviously tapered off a bit because it's 1-1, and now we're going to Golden State for 3 and 4. But I would say I was more enthusiastic, definitely after Game 6 for sure.
Yeah. You said you saw people jumping on streetcars. I was led to believe there were no arrests in Toronto. That was bragged. Is that legal in Canada? Y'all can just jump on whatever you want?
I suppose so. I suppose so. Yeah, that's what they were tweeting out. It was like, oh yeah, no one was arrested. There was no like rowdy behavior or whatnot. But there were, I'll tell you, like I saw people on top of streetcars. Like even on the news broadcasts here in Toronto, there were people like jumping on the hoods of police cars. And I think hopefully the cops were just of the mindset that, okay, the Raptors just won the Eastern Conference title. We'll let this slide. As long as they're not like pounding on our windshield or whatever, this is okay. But I guess, I don't know, I'll have to look at Toronto bylaws. I guess that's perfectly fine.
We were joking on our show last week. Like that's some cooking the crime stats like in The Wire. Like I saw a video of people jumping on police cars and they're like, hey guys, well-behaved fans in Toronto, no arrests. No arrest. No, that is that.
Just let us have this, man.
No, it's great. Because I had the same thing years ago during the Warriors' first title run. As a Grizzlies fan, I'd driven to Memphis for Game 3 when the Grizzlies went up 2-1 in that series of the Western Conference semifinals, and I had a moment where I was like, "This is it. Like this is not. It's not getting any better. Like this is probably the apex." But I allowed myself. As I've jumped on the Raptors bandwagon like hardcore since the marc-gasol trade, like I allowed myself to predict that the Raptors would win this series based on the Warriors being shorthanded and me not thinking that when the Warriors start making subs, all their lineups are kind of crazy and I don't feel like they're super good. And I thought the Raptors could kind of overwhelm them. After 2 games, do you still think like they can overwhelm them? You said you were almost, I mean, I don't want to put the words in your mouth. You were almost happy to be there after the Bucks series. But after seeing what you've seen in the first 2 games in Toronto, do you think like the Raptors can actually overwhelm these units that aren't like the best 5 Warriors that are left?
Well, the Raptors have been handed like this golden opportunity on a silver platter, right? Like it's hard enough going against the Warriors like when they're completely healthy, and now you never know exactly what Steve Kerr's going to throw at you because he's like slowly running out of bodies. And we saw that last night. Like Andre Iguodala, even though he hit that shot at the end, the guy's clearly not 100%. DeMarcus Cousins, I don't know how he's going to feel entering Game 3. Kevin Durant's calf injury comes into play. Klay Thompson, is his hamstring going to act up? Is he even going to play in Game 3? So you're seeing like the Alfonso McKinneys and the Quinn Cooks of the world, and they're producing. Like even Andrew Bogut last night, he was like, they were feeding him alley-oop lobs, and he scored just as many points as Marc-Gasol did.
Yeah.
And with the Raptors, it's like, we're such a boom or bust team during this postseason. Like, Kawhi Leonard's going to give you like 25 to 30 points. He's going to play great defense. But on any given night, you don't know who that number 2 guy is going to be. And thankfully, in Game 1, Pascal Siakam just went off. Like, even Draymond Green, who like proclaimed himself to be the greatest defender on the face of the earth, couldn't stop him. And obviously, he had more luck in Game 2. But it's like with the Warriors, like you know what you're going to get. Even when they're undermanned, like the ball movement, the 3-point shooting, like their defense, like when they lock in, they're pretty much unstoppable. And we saw that during the third quarter. And with the Raptors, you almost have to play like this perfect, flawless brand of basketball to get past them. And that was evident last night when they went on that just stupid run, like coming out of the half, that 18-0 run. It was like, I think it paired, it was like 27-3 at the end of the second quarter. So I think that, even not knowing who the Warriors is going to suit up in Game 3, it's like, okay, you just have to pretend like no matter who is opposing you, that these guys can steamroll through you at a moment's notice, and you can't go through these like long spurts where the defense is just lackadaisical and your shots are coming up short. Like that's just not going to cut it against this squad.
Does any part of you, just for maybe it messes up what the Warriors have going, would you like to see Kevin Durant return?
No.
Okay.
Even if he comes back, like I get it. He's like one of the top 3 players on the face of the earth. I don't know if he's going to be the Kevin Durant that we know. Like if he's just going to be putting up 30 with ease just because he's back out there. Like, and sure, like you suggested, it may disrupt Golden State's chemistry, but like he's an extra body out there. He's someone you have to account for. He can defend. Like you throw him at a guy like Pascal Siakam. Like we saw what Iggy and Draymond did to him last night. And then there's a third defender you can throw at Toronto's wings. I hope he just sits out the remainder of the series and he's just one less guy I don't have to concern myself with.
I've been on he's not going to play, and I think Bill Simmons was pointing out like the fact that he flew to Toronto for Game 2 was in his mind a sign that he's not going to play. He's just going to wanted to be around his teammates. Like otherwise, like why travel while you're trying to recuperate? But I can work myself up to the side of the coin that The Warriors assisted on 90% of their buckets. It was like the highest assist percentage on buckets since 1960, I think, since St. Louis. That's not happening if Kevin Durant plays. But you're right. As much of a struggle like a football game that Game 2 was, that was 2 hours and 45 minutes of teams just fouling and having trouble hitting shots. Adding another elite shot creator on the other side, probably not the best idea. So I'm super biased as a marc-gasol fan, and I watch him in these games. And the story with Mark, it's been the same way with the Grizzlies and on the Raptors, is he's passive. Like he turns down shots. Me looking at him as almost with the same love I give my child, I see him out there, and I'm like, well, no one's passing him the ball. Like, they don't ever give him the ball. What do you expect him to do? So to what degree, at least in games 1 and game 2, he had a great game 1, but in game 2, did you feel like Gasol was still turning down shots? He was still being too passive and they need him to be aggressive? Or were just the Raptors, maybe when they start panicking, they kind of stopped looking for him to do anything?
Well, Gasol is just a passive guy, but I think that's just his makeup and understanding of how this Raptors team runs. Like, when he's out there, he's a 4th or 5th option when he's out there. And he'd probably prefer to defer more often than not. And I remember this one moment in game 1 where he was at the top of the perimeter and he was wide open and Golden State was not making an effort to guard him. And he was like almost like jab stepping. He's like, do I run to the rim? Do I pass it? Do I take the shot? And he ultimately took the shot and he hit it. Like, if you're shooting like 40% from 3-point range, you're wide open. Yeah. Like, take the shot. Like, I understand that this is not Memphis where you were like a number 1 or 2 option. Like, if you're out there with Pascal or Kawhi or Kyle, like, you're not going to get as many shots as you're accustomed to. And you played great in game 1, but we need you to provide more on the offensive end than what you've been giving. And game 1 it almost feels like an anomaly because he hasn't really been giving that throughout the course of the postseason. Like, the reason you traded for him was so that you could throw him at a Joel Embiid or a Brook Lopez on defense. And the defense that he's been provided has helped Toronto get to this point. But if you're going to get into like this shootout with the Golden State Warriors, like, it's all hands on deck. You can't be scoring as many points as Andrew Bogut did in a 6-minute spurt coming off the bench late in the game. Like, you need to provide a little bit more. And, obviously it helps now that Kevon Looney's hurt, so it's like one less big that you're going to throw at Gasol in the paint, but like, be more aggressive. And I haven't watched a lot of Memphis Grizzlies games over the year. Like, we have this joke on Raptors Twitter that they've almost become like the zombie Raptors in a sense because they have so many former Toronto players. So I don't necessarily know how passive he was in Memphis. Was that also kind of like the way he conducted himself there, or?
Well, yeah. I mean, obviously he's a deferential player, but he was the second, third option on these Grizzlies teams, and he had aggressive moments. He had aggressive moments in the playoffs a couple years ago against the Spurs, where he had a game-winning shot against them in a series. It was like the last also great Kawhi series before he set out the following season. But Grizzlies fans have always, or for a long time later in his career, would criticize him for but they would frame it as like, he doesn't try hard every night. And I'm like an extreme Gasol defender, and I was always like, if he could score 25 every night, he'd be one of the best players, in the last 20 years or something. Like, he's not a defensive player and a differential player and a guy. He can't give you 25. It's not effort. He just kind of plays like in the flow. But again, in my mind, watching again as an extreme, unreasonable Gasol defender, watching the Raptors games, I'm like, guys, whoever, like Klay Thompson's on him. Maybe just put him in the post one time. And maybe that's extreme, antiquated NBA take. But I'm like, all right, Pascal, you're doing okay, but right now you don't have your shot going. Maybe just one time, let's settle down, post him up. He'll still pass the ball. But I feel like he's almost being, to some degree, wasted because he's not a quick trigger shooter on the perimeter. So just having him stand on the perimeter the whole time, I'm like, he's not going to fire these off every single time. I feel like he's a little more talented, and he can attack the Warriors in different ways besides just catching like 20 feet from the basket on like a really high elbow or catching it behind the arc to kind of keep the ball moving. I'm like, let's, one time in the post, I think he can take Andrew Bogut, or I think he can score just to mix it up. And again, this is watching them not score for however many minutes it was last night. was like, try something different.
Don't remind me.
Yeah. No, that's tough. I don't mean to. I also, as a Grizzlies fan or a tourist on the Toronto Raptors bandwagon, I was thinking, man, I'd feel ill if I was an actual Raptors fan. Like that was brutal. Anyway, what are your keys? Like, if you want to look at keys, or is it just certain players? Is it you just have to get something from Kyle-Lowry? It has to be aggressive marc-gasol. What are your keys for the Raptors now going to Oakland and trying to get back, or at least steal a road game to get back in the series?
Well, Kyle-Lowry can't play like the way he did last night. One of the big complaints that I had about the game, and was pretty much a consensus across the board, was that the officials were just trigger happy with their whistle. And there's only so far you can blame like the officiating in terms of like the foul calls that they're making. And Kyle put himself in a position where like he was getting those ticky-tack calls, and especially the sixth one that bounced him from the game. Like, I know he was trying to get back on defense, and he tried to stop the transition, but you need him out on the floor.
Yeah, that was insane.
Yep.
I'm sorry. The sixth foul was crazy. It was a full. What are you doing when you saw him about to go hit the ball and then he fouled? And you're like, what in the world, man?
So the last 5 minutes, he's not even out there, and this is coming from someone who's been just like enthralled with the way that Fred VanVleet has been defending Stephen Curry through these first two games. Like, at least if Kyle-Lowry is not out there, you have somebody who's like finally hitting shots ever since he had a second child. The guy cannot miss from 3-point range, and he's just guarding the hell out of one of the greatest ball handlers in the entire association. So it's not the worst case scenario. So you need more from Kyle-Lowry, obviously. Pascal was unstoppable in game one. Draymond made it his mission to lock him down in game two, and he certainly did that. This box and one defense that just threw Golden State off kilter during the final portions of this game that allowed the Raptors to get back into it. I don't know if you can necessarily get away with that again, but hey, it worked. Just go back to that if that's the case. I mean, if Klay Thompson is missing time and Durant's not back out there, that's obviously when you'd run it. But if it's just Curry and four guys, hell, it worked. Do it again. Curry's going to get his shots, but don't turn away from what's helping you get back into these games. And like I said before, like, it's just a matter of finding that second guy to kind of back up Kawhi. Like, it's becoming more noticeable, the deeper we get into this postseason, that Kawhi is clearly not 100%, regardless of what he says. Like, the guy's ailing, like his quad is acting up. He doesn't have as much lift on his shots. So you need someone, Pascal, Gasol, Kyle, VanVleet, to consistently provide you offense. And that's been the most frustrating thing about this postseason, is that there's so many talented guys who could score the ball. Danny Green had like such a cold spurt, and it was such a big deal when he finally scored in game one. But you can't have that. This is a guy who's like a proven finals competitor who's had big games in the past, and you can't have him be as off with his shot as he's been. So I think it's just a matter of Golden State not getting into a rhythm, locking them down defensively, which Toronto has done before, and just finding someone, raise their hand and be like, hey, I'll be that guy tonight besides Kawhi Leonard.
Has anyone ever run a box and one against you?
No, usually I was the guy who played with the guy that the box and one was designed for. I would just stand there and be like, hell, you go for him, I'll do my thing, you throw me the ball, I'll be okay. I was shocked when they were like running that last night. I'm like, I remember that from high school.
Yeah,
and everyone was bringing up, like, this is a college defense, this is a high school defense. I'm like, wow, this takes me back, going back in the time machine here.
I was a fan. I think my peak athletic moment of my life was playing a church league basketball game when I was 14, and a team ran a box and one on me. I stood at half court and just had a guy standing beside me. I'm like, this is great. Look at me.
Really?
Church league
Not
star.
Bad.
Yeah. But anyway, looking forward, win or lose in the NBA Finals. The season ends, and if Kawhi Leonard decides to leave. So they say Toronto wins the title, and Kawhi Leonard leaves. What do you think would the Raptors' plan going forward be?
Well, you're breaking my heart by just insinuating that there's a chance that Kawhi Leonard
I just
could
said
leave,
you won the NBA title.
If he wins the NBA title.
Yeah, you win the
NBA title, he's
Kawhi
staying.
leaves.
How about that?
What's the plan?
Okay, so let's just assume he leaves. I guess the plan would be to build around Pascal Siakam. You would probably explore moving Kyle-Lowry and Serge Ibaka because they'd be in the final years of their contract. The thing with like our president, Masai Ujiri, is that he's never complacent. Like, he's always trying to win. And I think if you go into next season, like, you just take Kawhi Leonard out of the picture and it's just this like same group of guys, they're still a playoff team, but they're not winning more than a round. And I don't think Masai would like go through that again. So he'd understand that the group that he surrounded Leonard with, you know, making that trade for Gasol and whatnot, like, that was it. That's the end of this era. And now it's time to move forward. You run with Siakam. You run with OG Anunoby, who has still yet to play during these playoffs. You have Fred VanVleet. Hopefully you can keep long term, because I think his deal is expiring as well. I just think that they would just have to blow it up. You know, Kyle Lowry, as much of a fan favorite as he is, there's not much more you could do with him as your starting point guard. And he's getting up there in age as well. So this was only kind of like a 2-year window we really had with him, barring whatever happens with Kawhi Leonard. Obviously, we're staying under this assumption that if he wins a title or not and he leaves, I think it's going to be a drastically new roster in 2020.
Yeah, I think it's interesting to think about a blow-up, or what a blow-up might look like in that scenario. Because right now, you know, Masai Ujiri and the Raptors are sort of the poster child for the anti-tanking. This is a team that, you know, built it a different way.
Yeah.
And currently they have no, you know, it's been said over and over and over, there's no lottery talent, or at least there's no one taken in the lottery on this basketball team. So to try to shift it, if they decide, all right, we got to move, Gasol's opted in, we got to do something with him, we got to do something with Kyle Lowry. It'll be interesting to watch. To wrap up, I normally ask it very first and forgot. Did you have breakfast? Did you treat yourself with a breakfast for your morning after to try to recoup?
Oh man, I'm not much of a breakfast guy, but that's not through my fault. That's just like my circumstances. Like, I work at the Score. I love my job, but I'm always working nights. So I work from like 5 to 1 in the morning, 5:30 to 1:30. I don't get home until like 2 o'clock, and then I fall asleep at 3 o'clock. So you're going to find me in bed until like 11:30, and at that point, it's lunchtime.
Right.
So I wish I was more of a breakfast guy. It's the most important meal of the day, but there is actually, in general, there's like a place like maybe half an hour away from my house. It's called Catherine's. And they have like this really good breakfast combo. It's like 3 scrambled eggs, bacon, home fries. You get a milkshake for like $7. So thank you for reminding me about breakfast, because now I actually want to go get that. I think it's like an all-day breakfast. That might be my plan for like later in the day.
Did you say milkshake?
Yeah, you get a milkshake too.
That is amazing. This might be my
vanilla. I always go for the vanilla. I'm very bland in that sense. It's like you can either get chocolate or strawberry, but give me a vanilla any day of the week.
That's awesome. I guess, should I want Jonas Valanciunas to return as a Grizzly? I got to say, Memphis fans, especially the ones who criticize Gasol for being inconsistent, they love Jonas Valanciunas because he shoots every single time. They're like, that's what we need. That guy's aggressive.
Oh man, I'm a proud member of the JV Hive here in Toronto. I was honestly very sad to see him go, because he's like one of the longest tenured guys we've ever had here.
Yeah.
And I was always a fan of that beard, because I've never been able to grow a beard, but that guy can grow a beard in no time. So I was very jealous of him in that front. But obviously, looking, fast forwarding, that trade worked out for us great, because Gasol's been, his defense has been elite throughout this whole playoffs. But in that short window that you guys had, JV, he was putting up 20 and 11 for you guys.
Yeah.
Those are really good numbers. And obviously, the Grizzlies were, out of the playoff picture at that time, but I really like JV as a 5. He has great hands around the rim. His defense is, hit or miss, but he can alter shots. He has great percentages for a 7-foot center. So, and he has a great attitude. He's very loyal. We didn't obviously can him like we did DeRozan, but that's another story. And he's not marc-gasol, and he may never reach that level. But I would certainly want him on my roster. I'd be proud to have him.
All right, that's pretty good. Did you know that Darrell Wright is second in Grizzlies history in triple doubles?
What, seriously?
Yeah. He put up 4? I think he put up 3 or 4, and he surged past everyone. And he's second all time. So
triple doubles aren't a staple in Grizzlies history, eh?
They are not. Nate Duncan was giving us. He attacked Grizzlies fans one night because he was watching when Darrell Wright got his first triple double. on the Grizzlies, and Nate Duncan was like, why are the announcers celebrating a triple-double in a blowout? And we were like, I was like, Nate, there's only been like 8 in our entire history. This is very exciting.
Take it and run. And also take very good care of Bruno Caboclo while you're at it.
Oh, yeah.
We love it.
His contract isn't guaranteed, but I assume he's coming back.
Hopefully, he's 2 years away from being 2 years away, eh?
When you're that tall and you can do some things every now and then, I guess you're worth keeping around to see if they can get more consistent. I want
him to get to that Brazilian Kevin Durant standard that was set for him when he was drafted.
I told someone I think he played like 30, I don't know, maybe 40 games or 35 games with the Grizzlies, and 3 of them were incredible. And based on that, sure, why not? Let's keep him for another year. Those other 32 games.
3 more incredible games than he had in Toronto.
That's right. Like it's like when a guy hits 5 threes and gets like 3 blocks and 2 steals in a game, and he's the size of Caboclo, you sit up and notice. You're like, whoa. And then the other games, you're like, oh, I don't know why. He's kind of a mess. But anyway,
just keep him around, develop him. He might turn into something special. Fingers crossed for you guys out there in Memphis.
Appreciate it. All right. Well, Chris, thanks so much for your time. What can we see coming up from you in the next couple weeks?
Just follow me on Twitter at Walder Sports. You're going to find enough Raptors takes to blow your mind. And obviously keep reading my stuff over at the Score app. Give us a download.
Sounds good. Thanks, Chris, for your time, and look forward to talking with you again soon.
Hey, thanks for having me, buddy.
All right, thanks to Chris for coming on. That breakfast plate is all I'm thinking about. Bacon and eggs and a milkshake? That's a dream right there. Check out Chris's stuff at The Score. You can download their app. Also, he's on Twitter, like he said, at Walder Sports. We now have a couple more days off before Game 3 as the NBA takes its sweet time with the finals. Make sure you check out those shirts, the John Wick NBA logo shirt. There's a few different options over at our TeePublic store, teepublic.com/user/fastbreak. And remember to write us a 5-star iTunes review. If you want some stickers, screenshot it and slide in my DMs on Twitter at FastBreakBreak. You can support us on Patreon at patreon.com/fastbreakbreakfast. All right, you guys are the best. Thanks for listening, and remember, breakfast is the most important thing.
Yeah, never apologize for being G&G. Fast break, man. You understand?
SeatGeek saves you time and saves you money. 2 of the more important commodities in our lives these days. They aggregate ticket selling sites together, so you don't have to go to 8 sites and then, I'm going to look at the 9th one now because I'm not quite sure. I was totally that way, of course. And then they also rank every ticket based on value. So you look at the section you want to sit in, find that big green dot, the darker green, the better. You'll start to experience just endorphins when you see that green dot and know that you're getting an awesome deal on the ticket. I used SeatGeek to go to a Bucks Wizards game, got awesome seats there for my fiance and me. So the way to get started with them, download the SeatGeek app and enter that familiar promo code
FastBreak.
by using that code to get $20 off your first SeatGeek purchase. That's promo code
FastBreak.
For $20 off your first SeatGeek purchase. Let them know that you came from us.
Fast break. John is an asshole. Fast break.